So I'm actually really glad I didn't take that invitation from Riot to join them because I'm looking at this here and realizing that, if I had actually relocated and done everything they'd asked me to do to join them, to be able to take the interview and do all that other BS, I could have been one of the people that they would have just been like, nope, sorry, and cut for no other reason than because they wanted to keep making money and they wanted to keep their investors happy. And so, like, this is one of the reasons that I do not think anybody who wants to work in tech should live outside of a tech hub. It has nothing to do with the fact that there's a lot more opportunities in tech hubs, although that is a big thing. It also comes down to the fact that if you are living in a tech hub, they can't trap you into a job you hate. Not to mention, if you live in a tech hub, you can just go across the street and get a better job if your company abuses you. I will never relocate to California. I will never relocate for an employer that just wants to treat me as a simple employee and not a founder or somebody with vested equity with actual control of the company. And this is why. I don't believe that it's in the best interest of software development engineers when you have companies like Riot forcing people to relocate and to agree to relocate to even be allowed to interview, even though they're the ones reaching out to you and e-begging you to relocate and e-begging you to interview. And now they're just eliminating roles, 530 to be exact. And so, this is, I'm happy that the CEO is flat out saying, look, I'm accountable for this. My bad, blah, blah, blah. But it's still bullshit. The fact is, if you're listening right now, Mr. CEO of Riot Games, you failed those 530 people. And by doing that, you broke trust with hundreds of thousands more people than that. And it's actually kind of a big deal. Like, I get that they're trying to do, the right thing or whatever it is. And I'm really thankful for that. I want to make that clear. 6 months of salary as a severance is actually a pretty big deal. And the problem there is that they kind of had to do stuff anyway. It was big enough to trigger their WARN Act. So they're kind of on the path of having to do that anyway, because what's happening there is they're basically going to say, look, we're doing this so that we can then file the paperwork and say we fired you 6 months later, even though you're technically on garden leave for 6 months. And so the big issue here is that I still don't like it when software development companies do layoffs. I just don't. I think it absolutely makes all of us be put into a worse position. And it actively says, look, we don't trust our own industry or our own company or our own customers enough to stay profitable. And it also kind of calls out the fact that they didn't do due diligence and plan correctly. It has nothing to do with the fact that they, how can I say this? I want to be respectful, but I need to be real about this. The fact is, this is not just a failure of leadership. This is a failure of the accounting team. This is a failure of budgeting. This is a failure of game design. The producer of the games that are not performing well, they should get the can. It's leadership, not the people on the ground making the game. Because in general, as a software development engineer, you're just taking tickets and trying to fulfill them as best you can, or you've been entrusted with something, and so you obsess about it and try to make sure you can do the absolute best you can. And you know what? I don't see the producers doing that. I see the writers and the head writers and everything trolling people on Twitter and telling customers and gamers that they're just bad because they don't like the crappy dialogue for games. I don't see the real people who should be held accountable in these situations. And that's what it comes down to. And I can say this because not only have I been a software developer, boots on the ground, working in an actual game studio up in Redmond, but I've actually been a software development engineer all the way up to the principal level, and I've been a software development engineering director. So I know what it's like to manage large teams because I manage 115 engineers officially and about 200 unofficially because what I'm going to call peering agreements. Okay. And I know that if I made a mistake and spun a team 3 levels below me out of control, it was still my fault. This makes me angry. I'm angry for the people who lost their jobs. I'm angry that the people who are going to keep their jobs are probably the people who made a mistake and actually created this scenario. And I'm angry that that lack of accountability is a stopping at the CEO because he should be holding everybody else accountable. It shouldn't have just been him in this write up. It should have been the producers for the games that didn't hit their metrics. It should have been everybody in leadership who messed up per a 360 interview process that would have allowed them to find out where the problems were that they refused to do based on how this is written. Okay? The fact is, Riot Games failed, but it wasn't just the leadership that failed. It was the entire organization. The leadership organization that refused to do 360 reviews and the entire organization that refused to listen to the people on the ground that were complaining about crappy leadership or specific individuals that were making toxic things and forcing the best people out. That's why I'm angry. And when I look at this, I go, wow, I am so glad I did not take that offer to interview.